How does Novalidate affect client-side validation in HTML? Have you ever wondered how the Novalidate attribute can change the way forms behave in HTML? Let's break it down in a simple way. The Novalidate attribute is a special feature you can add to the form tag in HTML. When you include this attribute, it disables the browser's automatic checks from validation when someone submits a form. Normally, when you fill out a form, the browser checks if everything is correct. For example, if a required field is empty or if an email address is not in the right format, the browser will stop you from submitting the form. It will show error messages to help you fix those mistakes. This is what we call client-side validation. Now, when you add the Novalidate attribute to your from tag, all those automatic checks are turned off. This means that the form will submit right away, even if there are errors in the input fields. So, if you forget to fill in a required field, the form will still go through without any warnings. So, why would you want to use Novalidate? One reason is if you want to create your own custom validation messages using JavaScript. This way, you can control how the messages appear and what they say, instead of relying on the browser's default messages. Another reason is if you plan to handle all validation on the server side. In this case, you might want to avoid any conflicts between client-side and server-side checks. It can also be handy during development or testing when you want to submit forms without being stopped by validation rules. For beginners, here are some important details to remember. The Novalidate attribute is a boolean attribute. This means you just need to include the word Novalidate in the from tag, and it will work. You do not need to assign a value to it. Even with Novalidate, you can still use the constraint validation application, programming interface, and CSS pseudo classes like valid and invalid. This means you can still check if inputs are valid with JavaScript and style them based on their status. There is also a related attribute called formnovalidate. You can add this to individual submit buttons to override the form's validation behavior for that specific button. Lastly, remember that using Novalidate does not replace the need for server-side validation. It is still very important for security and data integrity because client-side validation can be bypassed. In summary, the Novalidate attribute allows you to skip the browser's automatic validation checks, giving you more control over how forms behave. This can be a useful tool for anyone learning how to manage from validation and create user-friendly web pages.